All right, so you send us an article, and it's about lawyers using ChatGPT to uncover hidden legal loopholes.
Wow.
I know, right? It sounds crazy like something out of a sci-fi movie. But we're diving into this article today. It's called ChatGPT no derecho abre brechas legais que advogados ignoran by Steves Jr., published March 2nd, 2025.
Okay, so ChatGPT and legal loopholes. That's an interesting combination.
Yeah, and it's not just about simplifying legal work. The article suggests that ChatGPT is actually giving lawyers a strategic advantage.
It's like an AI legal eagle whispering secrets in their ears.
Right, finding legal loopholes before your opponent even knows they exist. That's next level stuff. And this isn't just some niche legal tech thing either.
Yeah.
If AI is changing how the law works, that impacts everyone.
Right, absolutely. The article emphasizes how rapidly the legal world is changing. New laws, new precedents, new rulings. It's a constant flood of information.
The tidal wave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And traditional methods are struggling to keep up.
Yeah, even for experienced lawyers trying to stay on top of all that must be overwhelming. I
Yeah.
can barely keep up with my email inbox.
Right, and that's where AI tools like ChatGPT come in. They can process and analyze huge amounts of data.
The kind of data that would take a human team weeks or even months to sift through.
Exactly. So it's not just about speed. It's about finding connections that humans might miss. ChatGPT is like that friend who remembers every obscure fact and can somehow relate it back to the conversation.
I have a few friends like that.
Yeah, me too. And the article outlines 4 ways lawyers are using ChatGPT to get this edge. Let's start with uncovering contradictions within laws themselves.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, ChatGPT can analyze legislation and pinpoint inconsistencies that could create opportunities for strategic arguments. You could say it's like an AI loophole detector.
So give me an example.
Okay, imagine a law that says you can't sell a certain product to people under 21, but another law doesn't specify an age restriction for online sales.
Ah, I see. So a lawyer could use ChatGPT to spot that contradiction.
Precisely.
But wouldn't that just make the legal system more complex?
That's a great point. It's something to think about for sure.
Yeah, I mean, would it just benefit those who can already afford to use this technology?
That's a valid concern, and it's something we should definitely discuss more. But for now, let's move on to the second superpower. The article calls it crafting unique legal arguments. ChatGPT can connect the dots between existing case law in ways that a human lawyer might not even think of.
So it's not just finding contradictions in the laws themselves, but it's finding connections between cases that no one's made before.
Exactly. It's like finding that one missing puzzle piece that changes the entire picture.
Right, it's about thinking outside the box. Or maybe we should say thinking outside the law books.
You got it. It's about pushing the boundaries of legal strategy with the help of AI. So that's superpower number 2.
Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3 is all about unearthing forgotten precedents.
Forgotten precedents. What does that mean?
Well, think about all the case law that's out there. It's this massive mountain of legal documents. ChatGPT can sift through it all and dig up relevant precedents that could completely change a case, especially when it comes to appeals.
Wow. So it's like having a legal research assistant who never sleeps and never misses a detail.
Exactly. And that brings us to superpower number 4.
Okay, give me the last one. I'm all ears.
Persuasion. ChatGPT can help lawyers refine their writing, making it clearer, more concise, and ultimately more persuasive to a judge.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about finding the right arguments, but it's about presenting them in the most effective way.
Exactly. You could have the best legal arguments in the world, but if they're buried in confusing legalese, they might not get the attention they deserve. ChatGPT can help make sure your message hits home.
It's like having an editor who can instantly analyze your writing and make suggestions for improvement.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, so we've talked about these 4 superpowers, but how does ChatGPT actually do all of this? It sounds almost magical.
Well, it's not magic, but it's pretty close. It's based on natural language processing, pattern recognition, and access to a vast database of information.
Okay, I know my phone can predict what I'm going to type, but that's pretty basic, right?
That's right. It's a basic form of natural language processing. But ChatGPT takes it to a whole other level.
So it's not just spitting back information, it's actually understanding legal language and legal arguments.
Exactly. It's recognizing patterns in case law and legislation and connecting seemingly unrelated pieces of information to build a persuasive case or to uncover a hidden loophole.
It's like those true crime documentaries where they find one tiny detail that ends up changing everything.
That's a great way to put it. It's about seeing the legal landscape from a completely new perspective.
Okay, this is all fascinating, but let's get down to brass tacks. What do these ChatGPT superpowers look like in actual cases? What are some real-world examples?
Let's dive into some real-world scenarios.
Yeah.
Think about a complex contract dispute.
Okay, so like a commercial contract with lots of complicated clauses and legalese.
Exactly. ChatGPT could analyze that entire contract, identify any ambiguous clauses, and then connect those to relevant case law to support one side's interpretation over the other.
So instead of spending hours poring over contracts and legal databases, a lawyer could use ChatGPT to quickly highlight the most strategically important information.
You got it. It's all about using AI to work smarter, not harder. And again, it's about augmenting human expertise, not replacing it. The lawyer still needs to understand the law craft, the arguments, and present the case in court. But ChatGPT can be a powerful ally in that process.
Makes sense. But what about those forgotten precedents? How would ChatGPT work in a criminal case, for instance?
Okay, let's say someone is facing charges based on a relatively new law. ChatGPT could analyze that new law, compare it to all existing legislation, and potentially uncover a precedent from a similar case that had a completely different outcome.
Wow, that could be a game changer, especially if that precedent helps interpret the law in a more favorable way.
You got it. It's about finding those needles in the haystack, those hidden gems of legal information that could make or break a case. And ChatGPT can do that with the speed and efficiency that humans just can't match.
It's like having a secret weapon in your legal arsenal. Okay, so we've talked about the amazing potential of ChatGPT. But all this talk about loopholes and innovative arguments, it makes you wonder about the potential downsides. Are we opening a Pandora's box here?
Now you're getting to the heart of the matter. Because while ChatGPT offers incredible potential, it also raises some really important questions about fairness and justice.
Exactly. If ChatGPT can find these loopholes, what's to stop everyone from exploiting them? It's like giving everyone a cheat code for the legal system.
That's a valid concern. And it goes beyond just lawyers. What if individuals could use ChatGPT to find ways around laws they disagree with?
Okay, now those are some serious ethical questions. It's starting to become clear why this topic has sparked so much debate.
Absolutely. And that's why these conversations are so crucial. We need to be having these conversations now before the technology gets ahead of us.
So what does this mean for the average person listening? What should they take away from this?
The key takeaway is that ChatGPT is already having a real impact on the legal world. It's giving lawyers a powerful new tool and raising some fundamental questions about fairness and access to justice. It's a reminder that technology is constantly evolving, and we need to understand how those changes are affecting us, especially when it comes to something as important as the law.
Yeah, it's like we're standing at a crossroads, not just for the legal world, but for society as a whole.
And as AI continues to evolve, its influence on the legal profession will only grow.
So where do we go from here? What's the next chapter in this story?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's one that we as a society need to answer. But for now, the most important thing is awareness. We need to understand both the potential and the risks of AI in law so we can have informed discussions about its development and use.
That makes a lot of sense. This feels like a really good starting point for those conversations. We've covered a lot of ground from the technical side of ChatGPT to the ethical questions it raises, but now I want to know what our listeners think. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? Don't be shy. Share your thoughts with us, and let's keep this conversation going.
This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. It's a topic that deserves ongoing exploration and discussion. And to help you do just that, we've included links to some additional resources in the show notes.
You'll find links to some of Steve Jr.'s other articles and podcasts. He really goes deep into these issues.
And we've also curated some articles and podcasts from other experts in the field so you can get a broader perspective. We believe in giving you the tools to form your own informed opinions.
We're not here to tell you what to think. We just want to spark your curiosity and encourage you to keep learning.
Well said.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the one big question you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the question that keeps coming back to me is this. If ChatGPT can find legal loopholes and craft innovative arguments, what does that mean for the future of law itself? Will AI eventually become the ultimate legal authority? Will it help us create a more just and equitable legal system? Or will it simply exacerbate existing inequalities? These are questions that we can't afford to ignore.
Wow, that's some heavy stuff to think about. It feels like we're at the very beginning of a massive shift, not just in law, but in society as a whole.
And like any powerful tool, it's ultimately up to us to decide how we use it. Will we wield AI responsibly to improve our systems, or will we let it create further divisions and injustices? The choices we make today will have a lasting impact.
That's a powerful thought to leave our listeners with. So much to consider. Thanks for taking the time to guide us through this complex and fascinating topic.
It was my pleasure. These conversations are vital, and I'm glad we had the chance to have this one.
And I thank you for listening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.
So we've talked about these ChatGPT superpowers, but it still feels a bit abstract. Can we get into some real-world situations? Like, what does this actually look like in practice?
Sure, let's get specific. Imagine a lawyer using ChatGPT, and they find a contradiction in tax law. Some little nuance that no one else has noticed, and it saves their client millions of dollars.
Okay, that's a big deal.
Or picture a defense attorney using ChatGPT to uncover a precedent that everyone had forgotten about, and that gets their client's charges dismissed.
Wow, those are some high-stakes examples.
Right.
And it makes me think about how ChatGPT could really level the playing field, especially for individuals or smaller firms who might not have the resources to do all that research themselves.
That's a really important point. Access to justice is crucial.
Yeah.
And if AI can help bridge that resource gap, well, that's a huge step forward.
It makes you wonder if there will be a time when not using AI in legal practice would almost be considered negligent, like you're not using all the tools at your disposal.
That's a thought-provoking question for sure. It raises a lot of ethical and professional questions for lawyers.
Definitely. But let's stick with those examples from the article. What kind of real-world impact are we talking about here?
Well, the article doesn't get into specific cases, but it does paint a picture of the possibilities. Let's say you have a really complex contract dispute.
Okay, like a commercial contract with all sorts of complicated clauses.
Exactly. ChatGPT could analyze that whole contract, identify any ambiguous language, and then connect those clauses to relevant case law.
To support a particular interpretation.
Exactly. So instead of spending hours and hours poring over contracts and legal databases, ChatGPT could help a lawyer quickly find the most strategically important information.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's a lot faster.
Much faster. It's like having a superpowered research assistant working alongside you.
Yeah.
But remember, it's still about augmenting human expertise, not replacing it. The lawyers still need to understand the law and craft the arguments and present the case in court.
Right. ChatGPT is just a tool.
Exactly. A very powerful tool, but still a tool. Okay, I get that. But what about that example of a forgotten precedent? How could that actually work in a criminal case, for instance?
Imagine a case where someone is facing charges based on a relatively new law.
Okay.
ChatGPT could analyze that law, compare it to all the existing legislation, and maybe even uncover a precedent from a similar case that was decided decades ago.
And that precedent could help the defendant.
Exactly, especially if that precedent offers a more favorable interpretation of the law.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's all about finding those needles in the haystack, those hidden gems of legal information. And ChatGPT can do that far more efficiently than any human researcher.
It's like having a secret weapon.
You got it.
But with all this power, all this talk about loopholes and winning strategies, it makes you wonder about the potential downsides. I mean, what are the risks here?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
While ChatGPT has this enormous potential, it also raises some important ethical questions about fairness and justice.
Right. If ChatGPT can find these loopholes, what's stopping everyone from using them? Could this create even more inequality in the legal system?
It's a valid concern, and it goes beyond just lawyers. What if individuals could use ChatGPT to find ways around law they don't like?
Okay, now we're getting into some dangerous territory. Sounds like we could be opening a Pandora's box.
It's something we need to think carefully about. As AI becomes more powerful, we need to develop safeguards to make sure it's used responsibly.
Do you think we need new rules or regulations?
I think it's definitely something we need to consider. We can't just focus on the practical benefits of AI. We also need to think about the ethical implications. How do we make sure it's used fairly and doesn't make existing inequalities worse?
Those are really important questions. It feels like this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're talking about the role of AI in society, not just in the legal world.
And those conversations are more important than ever. We need to be having these discussions now before the technology gets too far ahead of us.
Absolutely. So what does all this mean for the average person listening today? What should they take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that ChatGPT is already having a real impact on the legal world. It's giving lawyers a new set of tools, and it's forcing us to ask some fundamental questions about fairness and access to justice.
It's changing the game.
It is. And it's a reminder that technology is constantly evolving. We need to stay informed about these changes and understand how they're affecting us, especially when it comes to something as important as the law.
It's like we're at a crossroads.
We are. As AI continues to evolve, its impact on the legal system will only grow.
So where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's a question we need to answer together as a society. But I think the most important thing right now is awareness. We need to understand both the potential and the risks of AI in law so we can have informed and productive conversations about its development and use.
Well said. I think this has been a really great starting point for those conversations. We've talked about the technical capabilities of ChatGPT and explored some of the ethical dilemmas it creates. But I want to know what our listeners think.
Yes. What are your thoughts? What questions do you have?
Don't be shy. Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And let's keep this conversation going.
This is just the beginning.
Exactly. There's so much more to explore. And to help you do that, we've included links to some additional resources in the show notes.
You'll find links to Steve Jr.'s other articles and podcasts. He really delves into some fascinating areas that we didn't have time to cover today.
And we've also included some articles and podcasts from other experts in the field, just to give you a broader perspective.
It's all about empowering you to learn more and form your own opinions.
We're not here to tell you what to think. We just want to provide you with the information you need to think critically about these issues.
Exactly.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, what's the one big question you want to leave our listeners with? What's the thought you want them to ponder?
That's a good question. I think the one that keeps coming back to me is this. If ChatGPT can find legal loopholes and come up with these really innovative arguments, what does that mean for the future of the law itself?
That's a big one.
It is. Will AI eventually become the ultimate legal authority? Will it help us create a more just and equitable system, or will it just make things worse? Will it exacerbate those inequalities that already exist? These are questions we really need to be asking ourselves.
It feels like we're on the edge of a major shift, not just in the legal world, but in society as a whole.
I think you're right. And it's a little bit scary, but it's also exciting.
Mm.
You know, like any powerful tool, it all comes down to how we choose to use it.
That's a great point. It's up to us to decide what kind of future we want to build.
Exactly. We have the power to shape how AI is developed and how it's used in the legal system and beyond.
That's a really empowering thought. So much to think about. Thank you for guiding us through this complex and fascinating topic.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations.
And thank you for listening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
This has really gotten me thinking, there's just so much to consider with this whole AI and legal stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We've only scratched the surface here. There are so many more layers to this. Totally. So as always, we encourage our listeners to keep digging deeper.
Yes. Keep learning. Keep exploring.
Exactly. And to help you do just that, we've included some links in the show notes to some additional resources.
You'll find links to some of Steve Jr.'s other articles and podcasts. I think you'll find them really interesting. He really delves into some fascinating areas.
Yeah, he does. And we've also curated some articles and podcasts from other experts in the field just to give you some different perspectives.
It's all about giving you the tools to form your own opinions. You know, we don't want to just tell you what to think.
Right. We want to spark your curiosity and get you thinking critically about these issues.
Exactly.
Okay. So as we wrap up our deep dive today, what's the one big question you want our listeners to walk away with? What's the thing you really want them to think about?
That's a good question. I think the one that keeps coming back to me is this. If ChatGPT can find these legal loopholes and come up with these innovative legal arguments, what does that mean for the future of law itself? You know, will AI eventually become the ultimate legal authority?
That's a big question.
It is. Will it help us create a more just and equitable system, or will it just end up making things worse? Will it make those inequalities that already exist in the legal system even worse? These are questions that we can't afford to ignore.
It feels like we're at a turning point, a real crossroads, not just for the legal profession, but for society in general.
I agree. And it's a little bit scary, to be honest, but it's also exciting. Like we're on the verge of something big, something that could change everything.
It's up to us to decide how we use this technology. You know, AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
That's right. We have the power to shape how AI is developed and how it's used in the legal system and beyond.
So what do you think? What does the future hold for AI in the law?
Well, if I had a crystal ball, I'd tell you.
Yeah.
But the truth is, nobody knows for sure. But that's what makes it so exciting. You know, we're all part of writing this story. We're all shaping the future with the choices we make today.
That's a really powerful thought.
Yeah.
So much to think about. Thank you for guiding us through this topic. It's been a fascinating conversation.
My pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
And to all of you listening out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new today and that we've inspired you to keep exploring these issues. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep challenging assumptions, and keep